Hi everybody, my name is Zack Rosen. I'm the editor-in-chief of thenewgay.net, which is a Washington, D.C.-based resource for alternative queers of all genders and races. This is our first entry in the new TNG TV channel, which you can find on YouTube. I'm here with Cleve Jones, who's organizing the National Equality March on the Mall, and has stirred up a little bit of controversy doing it. So the first thing I'll ask you, Cleve, is what you have to say to you kind of picked up a lot of detractors, a lot of people that feel like you shouldn't have taken prerogative to do this by yourself. What do you say to those people?
Well, I didn't do it by myself, and I take issue with you saying that I've organized it. I could never have organized this. You know, there are hundreds and hundreds of mostly young people all across the country that have organized this. I had no intention of doing this year, but it became clear to me by May that Obama was pulling back from his commitments, that the Democratic Party was pulling back from their commitments. The final straw for me was Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, who was a friend of mine, who helped me very much when I started to quilt, gave an interview to a gay newspaper in San Francisco saying that repealing the Defense of Marriage Act was not a priority. So it's so clear to me that if we're going to get anything, we need to push now. In another year, Obama's going to be focused on re-election. That's the reality of the political cycle. And I also think that the confluence of anniversaries and milk coming out and Barack's election and Proposition 8 has opened a door, and that door is already swinging shut, and we need to kick it open and march through it. Now, as for the detractors, they said we couldn't do it in 4 months. We did it. They said that it would cost millions of dollars. The total budget's $200,000. We've raised it. We've paid our bills already. We posted our budget online, made it transparent. I hired one young man at minimum wage for a few weeks, and that's it. I didn't spend any money on bells and whistles. Every single person that came here from our organization paid their own way to get here, paid their own hotels, myself included.
Right.
Okay. I was very amused to be accused of being a top-down guy. I mean, I've never been accused of being a top before in my life, but no, this is not some corporate structure, which reminds me of another thing. We did it without any corporate money. You'll see no brand names floating through this. It's not a parade, it's a march. So I think we've shown people that we can do this, that we did do it, that we kept our promises. And as for what gave me the right to call for this, it's a little piece of paper called the United States Constitution that gives any citizen or any person in this country the freedom to assemble and petition their government. And I think we should be doing this more often. I think more people should be doing it, not waiting for some Politburo to give them permission to go out and say what needs to be said. And I'm old, but I'm sick and tired of waiting. I cannot understand this bullshit. Wait. Wait means never. I don't want another generation growing up as second-class citizens. We know what the consequences of second-class citizenship are. Consequences: death and brutality and beatings and murders in middle schools. We all know the reality there. We've all experienced it. So I have no patience with these critics. I think some of the questions were legitimate, and we answered them. The rest of it is bullshit.
Well, I think there's this idea now. I'm glad to hear you say this, because I think that a lot of grassroots activism gave way to kind of this HRC kind of gay by consensus, we all have to be in lockstep.
Well, but let's talk about why that happened, because it's important, I think, especially for the younger generation, to understand what happened to us. We were derailed. You had an emerging social movement. When I joined the movement, it was quaintly called gay liberation, and It was a liberation struggle. And those of us who started this movement came out of other liberation movements, the anti-war movement to get us out of Vietnam, the feminist movement, the civil rights movement. So we get this thing started. Stonewall happens, there's riots, people begin to fight back, get some sense of dignity and self-respect. Community begins to evolve, and then bam, AIDS. We're hit with this horrendous pandemic. I lost by 85, almost everybody I knew was dead or dying. There's hardly anyone left that knew me when I was your age.
Right.
And everything changed. Half the men of my generation were killed. We lost our most brilliant activists. And then every bit of energy we had to fill the vacuum of government inaction. They abandoned us. We had a president named Reagan who's been, deified in some quarters. He was an asshole who didn't say the word AIDS aloud until more Americans had died of it than died in the entire Vietnam War. Your generation has no personal knowledge of how devastating this time was. I had people die around me. I had people die in my life every week for 10 years. And everything we could do had to be about that. And it required us to raise tens of millions of dollars. We couldn't raise it all ourselves. So good, hardworking, well-meaning, dedicated people knew they had to go after the corporate dollar and they had to go after the government dollar. Those are good people delivering important services, but they are not the leaders of the movement because they are by definition cautious. You can't expect bold action from people who are dependent on grants from IBM.
And where do we go from here? What I'm asking is, because you seem to be a victim in some ways of the idea that we all have to be moving together, which I think is bullshit. I think that when you're a little...
Oh, please, putting together, building a consensus in this community, get real. It's like herding cats. And there's a reason for that. We're different. We're not like other minorities. We're born into rich families, wealthy families, poor families, destitute families. We're born black and white and brown. We're into Muslim families and Baptist families and Methodist families and Republicans and Libertarians. We're all over the map. So don't tell me I have to come up with a consensus before I do what I think is right. And you shouldn't allow that either.
I won't.
It's censorship. It's ridiculous.
Then what do you do if you're a gay person or a queer person doesn't fit into the mainstream, but you're trying to build your own queer life for yourself? This is probably my last question. What do you do to move forward?
Just do it. Do what you want. Be free. Act. If we are free and equal people, we will act that way. And there is no Politburo in this movement. Everyone has a right, and I would say a responsibility, to do what their heart tells them is the right thing to do. And these same people did everything they could to keep Harvey Milk from getting elected. Happily, they failed.
What would he say if he saw kind of the
If I hate saying things like if Harvey were alive today, because who the hell knows?
And I hate asking, but everyone wants to know.
But it's the same criticism from the same quarters. These people hated Harvey and hated what he represented. They did everything they could to stop him, and I think he would get a kick out of this. He called for the first march, didn't live long enough to see it. But he called on Carter. Carter had made his famous statement, "Human rights are absolute," and Harvey jumped on that. He saw this as an opportunity to take it to the next level, to elevate it to the federal level, which is the only source of real equality.
Okay, one more question, just while I have you. What do you say to the people that believe that we have to be these kind of model A-class citizens, button-up shirts all the time to win our rights? Do you think there actually is a relationship between our behavior and our rights, or we should just be free to be the people we are and get our rights anyway?
Do you think you really need to ask me?
I just want to hear you have to say about it, though.
I think people should live free and be the people that they want to be and look the way they want and act the way they want. I was so disappointed in our community last year, the controversy over ENDA, the idea that trans people would be abandoned, would be left out, the most vulnerable segment of our community. To say that they are not part of a community, I heard that repeatedly from some of these people that you're referring to, and I thought it was hateful and cruel and dishonest. We need to all move forward. We need to respect our diversity. We need to enjoy it. It's really a marvelous thing about our people. And we certainly don't want to stifle that wonderful queer creative energy that has brought us as far as we've come. That's where it all comes from.
Cool. Well, thank you. Cleve Jones, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I gotta run. Yeah.